Alright, what is going on, everybody? Christian, aka Jero here. Got a fun one today. So this is going to be probably what a lot of my Riftbound content is going to look like going forward for the next couple weeks until the set is released in the West, and maybe even going past that. So again, a little bit of insight. I don't want to start every video saying the same thing, but I do think it's important contextually for what we're going to be doing today. The way that I learn any strategy game historically has always been when I'm starting on the ground floor. I watch the people that are already doing well, right? The people that are already ingrained in the game. So, and my track record is pretty good for that. I have gotten the top of the ladder in quite a large number of games, right? TFT, Hearthstone, Magic, of course, Old versus System and WoW, like I've mentioned before, Legends of Runeterra. So this is kind of the learning method that works for me. It doesn't necessarily work for everybody else, but I'm pretty happy to kind of just be doing this process on my own free time, and I kind of wanted to bring this into the content because I think maybe I'm not the only one that learns this way, right? So basically what we're going to be doing, and that, for the record, is VOD reviewing, right? Watching people that are already better and more established at the game than I currently am. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be watching Prismat. In particular, this is his finals match. I believe yesterday, which at the time of recording this is October 12th, so the finals that he played in a Riftmaxxing tournament on the 11th. And Prismat is somebody that I haven't had the pleasure of getting to interact with in person, but we've been around a lot of the same circles for a very long time. I recognize his name playing at the top of the ladder, particularly in most recent times, was the beginning of Legends of Runeterra. But he's somebody that you can pretty much always count on as being an incredible gamer, in particular at the beginning of a game's lifespan. Just very methodical, very talented, and I pretty much can't imagine a better person that I'm interested in watching and learning from for the foreseeable future. I won't do his videos every time. I'll switch it up based on who's got content out that I think is interesting. Tournaments where you can assume the results are you can be confident in those results, right? But yeah, I think this is a perfect first look at kind of doing some VOD reviewing. Because, like I've already kind of alluded to, this is how I learn, right? Especially when we don't have access to playing the cards on our own. I don't particularly like playing a lot of third-party clients myself, usually. And this seems like a really good format for me to kind of dig my feet in. And again, for reference, this video may not be for everybody, right? It's going to be very slow. I don't know how long this match is. I haven't watched it previously, but we're going to be doing a lot of pausing. I'm going to be trying to backtrack a lot of the decisions that Prismat is making so that they can make sense to me, so that I can understand them for myself. Generally speaking, in the high-level Magic the Gathering community, it's kind of frowned upon when you're doing the whole backseat driving thing on a stream or whatnot. I think for the most part you should assume that the person you're watching or that has the high level results knows what they're doing, and even if they aren't verbalizing or vocalizing what they're doing, that there's a reason, right? There's a method to the madness. And while that's not to say that people can't make mistakes, right? Nobody's perfect. But I have a lot of interest in giving credit to the people that are doing it right, to the people that are, winning events, getting high place finishes consistently. And more often than not, especially in the learning process, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I just want to deconstruct a lot of the plays that they're making so that they make sense to me in a couple weeks when I have access to the game as well, right? So that's what we're going to be doing here. And I'm basically just going to let the video play at normal speed until I have a reason to want to stop, whether that's to backtrack a play or kind of just see what makes sense and what doesn't. Trying to, here we go. All right, so it looks like we have a Kai'sa mirror match. We're both playing the 4-cost Kai'sa champion, which I think is just very standard at this point. Let's see. And again, the first pause. And this is kind of what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be highlighting pretty much everything that's going on with the gameplay, because when you're trying to play the game at a high level, literally everything matters, right? You can't leave any stone unturned. So because I don't have quite the visceral memory of matching each card to the art yet, gonna make sure I understand which battlefields we're playing. So our battlefield is... see if I can find it here. Is it... I'm not actually sure which battlefield that is. I don't quite see anything that looks like it matches that art style. Oh, here we go. Candlelit Sanctum. When you conquer here, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You may recycle one or both of them, put them back into any order. So it's just a little bit of a card recoup engine. Look at the top 2 cards of your main deck. You may recycle, put those back. Okay, so it's card selection. It's not actually card quantity. Okay, that makes sense. So that's the one that we're going with there, and then that's the Void Gate one. That one I'm more familiar with. Yep, Void Gate. Spells and abilities affecting units here deal 1 additional damage. Perfect. And I think it's probably safe to assume that they're each going to have a lot of similar battlefields for the future games as well. All right. So, right side is extra spell damage, left side is looting. All right, we are leading off on, I think that is Student. I'm pretty sure. Yep, Ravenbloom Student. Spells, give it +1 might. Perfect. Alright. The enemy here is going to claim their first point. They're going to claim the card manipulation battlefield on the left-hand side. And that is a sentry, right? I'm pretty sure that's a sentry, yeah. Because I see the 1 might. Alright. They still have 4 energy for the turn, so let's see, they could just play their Kai'sa, potentially. Might have another option that they want to make. They might not want to play the Kai'sa because they don't want to have to recycle any energy yet. So they're just playing their own student and sitting on 2 energy. Okay. Before I started doing this, I was actually under the impression we would get to see his cards. It's a little unfortunate that we don't. He probably did it that way because he was streaming, I would imagine. Which makes sense. Unfortunately, that's a reality of when you try to put your own content out, especially live content. You have to deal with some stream sniping every so often. Alright, so we decided to send in our students with 5 open energy into the Sentry. They did not do anything, so we're going to claim that battlefield and take our first points. I think doing that, again, I don't know what the 5 cards in our hand are, but doing that before we commit to spending our resources on anything else, I think is really smart. That way, if we need to get into a fight over the battlefield, we have 5 energy that we have the ability to spend over our opponent's 2. Makes it really unlikely, unless our opponent is on a very particular set of cards, that they would even want to fight us there, even if they had a way to interact with combat. We are playing another student. And we are playing, I don't know the name of the card, but I know which card that is. That is the double spell, Legion ability, cost 2 less, 4 might units. And I need to learn my name recognition anyways, so let's go ahead and start saying it out loud. The Hopeful. The Noxus Hopeful. Alright, so definitely looks like Prismatic's off to an early lead here, in control of 1 battlefield. His base is looking pretty sturdy. We're down 3 cards to 6 in hand. So I could see that potentially being a liability going forward. Our opponent, up to 6 resources. Their worst possible play, I mean, just like baseline, not worst. Their baseline play is they could accelerate Kai'sa if they wanted to do that. We have no resources open, so they would for sure be able to claim a battlefield of their choice. Presumably, they would want to just fight our student while we're tapped out. And then they would get to draw a card. So that actually sounds like a pretty good play to me without having access to the cards in their hand. So the fact that they're tanking on this, I think you should be able to kind of assess that they have other good options. They're definitely not sitting on nothing. Opponent is very deep in the tank here. Yeah, playing from the Prismat home team point of view, this sounds like, or this seems like we should like our spot, I think. Because if our opponent was to just make the Kai'sa play, our next turn play is pretty good, no? So they could Kai'sa, right? They could fight our student, they could take the other battlefield, they could go up to 3 points this turn. But then our following play is just so strong, no? Because then we could Kai'sa ourselves. We get to draw a card from our Kai'sa fighting their student on the Void Gate battlefield. And then our base gets to destroy their Kai'sa. Seems really good. So yeah, they're going with some spells. I don't actually know what spell that is. That is Void Star, maybe? Is that right? Void Seeker? I think maybe I've got, oh no, here we go, it's Falling Star, there we go, that's why. So they did recycle, yeah, Falling Star, deal 3 to a unit. Okay. Oh, and you do this twice. Interesting. So what does that mean? That makes me think that they're going to go, all right, so we can go back to unpausing. That explains why their Kai'Sa is exhausted. And presumably this hopeful has 3 damage on it. So you would think that that's going to be relevant for the play that they make. Yeah, this has 3 might now because of the Falling Star, but they were going to take the base regardless, so that's not wildly important, and then they still have 4 resources to work with. Oh, I missed something. All right, I need to. I see. We exhausted Kai'Sa to play. We exhausted Kai'Sa to play Hextech Ray. Excellent. All right. And then what did we play here? We played another student. The enemy plays another student. Okay. Well, we prevented our opponent from getting any victory points that turn. It looks like we're just jamming Kai'Sa. So we're connecting first, and that makes sense to me. Presumably, we want to conquer this battlefield because we want to do the look at top 2 ability. It's very important. That way, if we do decide we want to lead with accelerating Kai'Sa after this, we know what card we're drawing, so that's very valuable. And then if we do accelerate Kai'Sa, we'll have access to 1 energy plus our Kai'Sa legend ability. So we're not completely helpless on tricks for our opponent's turn either. So we'll just kind of have to see what Prismatic decides on. We are playing the Kai'Sa, but we're not accelerating it. We want the extra 2 resources. Interesting. He's not in a rush. He's not in a rush. So right there, I'm going to pause that because even though we're viewing from Prismatic's perspective, we actually are just like kind of like watching a tournament match that you would see on coverage because we don't have access to the hand information. So as a competitor, this leads me to believe is you want to be able to, from the enemy's point of view in the spot, you want to be able to kind of assess what cards your opponent is representing. Because you can see on board that they had such an easy access to an arguably more powerful immediate play that you know that they're representing something when they leave these extra 2 resources ready. So what are we representing? We don't have access to deck list. Well, Prismatic was showing his deck, I believe. So we don't know, but I think as the opponent, you don't have access to deck list. So you could think he could be representing a smoke screen, not really Stupefy, but that could be a Stupefy in addition to more cards, because you would have already been able to represent Stupefy regardless. It could be a retreat, which is another 1 energy card. So my suspicion is if I was Prismatic's enemy right now, all right, I'm going to go ahead and let it start playing again. If I was Prismatic's opponent right now, I would probably be putting Prismatic on a smoke screen pretty hard. Which is very important because if you don't have a big trick to follow up with, you would not want to send your Kai'Sa accelerated into the hopeful with that information, right? Alright, so we played that removal spell whose name is eluding me. Let's get back to it here. Void Seeker. Yep. We sent in the student. We got our 2nd point. Still have 4 energy to work with. But again, they might play the Kai'Sa, but they're not going to be accelerating it if they play it this turn. Right off the rip, I'm already kind of feel like I'm putting together a decent bid. I was kind of under the assumption that accelerating Kai'Sa was going to be correct more often than not. And both players here seem to not make that a very high priority. So that's interesting to see for sure. Yeah, we are just playing the Kai'Sa. Very interesting. And we did not do anything else. Alright. We are going into combat. We're going to draw our card, go up to our 3rd victory point. Oh, so it does work that way. We get to do the conquer ability before. Yeah, it's probably its own chain, right? I assume it's your turn. You probably get to choose how they go on the chain. That would make sense to me. Boom. Down goes the Kai'Sa. Wait, let me backtrack that a little bit, because I'm not actually sure how Kai'Sa died. Was that that wasn't a Void Seeker, was it? It must have been. 3, 1, and then 2 more for this. Okay, so it was Void Seeker. I was thinking it was the 2 energy one. Okay. Strange that those arts look so similar. And then, yeah, this looks like a very good position for Prismatic to be in. Opponent has no base. Oh, we are playing and we are accelerating the big boy, and that card is. Go ahead and pause her up real quick. The big one. The biggin. That is the Thousand-Tailed Watcher, which also has Accelerate, and it gets to do the -3 ability, the -3 might ability to a unit. So, we have a lot of resources up, but they're definitely going to be threatening our Kai'Sa. They are Hextech Raying, and it looks like we're doing something in response. We are retreating. Yup. Very nice. And they are going to get their third victory point here, claiming the left battlefield, and they're going to do the top two again. You can see where there is a lot of interest. Basically, they're only exclusively fighting over this left side battlefield here, because this is the one where they're consistently getting something that they want, right? The ability to be able to look at the top two of your deck and manipulate your draw steps is very important. That's pretty much true across all card games, and it's no surprise here to see that carry over. Which 2-drop is that we have in play? I'm going to pause this while he's looking at the bracket anyways. That is... Oh, that's Lecturing Yordle. I see. Okay, looks like it gets back to the game in 5 seconds. Alright. And we are playing Darius. So if we double spell here, we can ready him, but we don't want to fight the Watcher. Oh, so we're just gonna tag team it. Yeah, it makes sense. Opponent has no resources. It's a safe free roll. Both of our units are gonna be defeated. Oh wait, Darius. All right, let's make sure I understand Darius's text here. I would be surprised if Darius doesn't also have to get destroyed, right? Because in that case, you wouldn't have been obliged to send in the 3-drop as well. +2. Interesting. I feel like I must be missing something. And I would like to figure out what that something is. Oh, Lecturing Yordle tank. Very nice, Prismat. Very nice. Yeah, that combat was absurd for us. Getting to make that trade is crazy powerful. And then we get to draw a card from our Kai'Sa Conquering as well. Excellent turn from Prismat. And now you can pretty much see the writing. It's going to take a lot for enemy here to be able to claw back together. He's only got 5 cards to R4, and we are very far ahead, both on victory points and on the board. Hextech Ray is going to get the Kai'Sa. The Hextech Ray gets the Kai'Sa because it's on Void Gate. It deals the extra damage. And then we have our own Hextech Ray to make the Darius fight a trade. Our opponent needs to have something here. This is big. If we get away with this, where they don't have anything for 3 resources to defend this fight, that's massive for us. Where obviously it makes sense for Prismat to go for it. It's our last resource. And it's obviously a huge high roll if we're successful. Alright, it looks like we're not going to be successful, but that's still a totally fine exchange for us. Enemy only goes up to 4 victory points. Opponent only has 2 cards in hand. I think our spot here is still pretty fine, although we do want to make sure we find an answer to this Darius. Looks like we're playing something gigantic that can only... Yep, our own Watcher. We get to take over this Darius pretty easily. It's only a 2 might. We're at 7. Up to 6 victory points. Look at our top 2 cards. Make sure our draw next turn is a good one. A banger. And then, yeah, it looks like the enemy is on fumes. 2 cards in hand. Only getting up to 10 energy, so, like, you wouldn't even really have to worry about any kind of, like, time warp plus unit nonsense. What is that? That is another sentry. Makes sense. We do have another fatty, our own Watcher. So, second Watcher means we get to go into combat. Yep, Priz is already spinning it into the graveyard, into the trash, as it were. And he's up to 5. You can definitely see how the games are pretty swingy. Pretty swingy. Each player pretty consistently taking turns, just playing big, gigantic, powerful threats over one another. Obviously, I kind of stand by, I think Prismatic is still on average pretty far ahead with the lead that he's been able to accumulate. 7. So then if we have a way to take out this Watcher, Time Warp, there it is. He's got to have an answer for it. If he doesn't have an answer for it, we get to start our next turn. And it looks like they're conceding. Yeah. Yeah, they're shuffling in. Sick. All right. So the Time Warp closeout for Prismat in this game. Very nice. Very nice. A lot of those decisions were... I think, again, we don't have access to the hands, so reasonably straightforward, but it's nice to see kind of what the gameplay looks like at the level where at least they're playing the finals of an event. So... I won't lie, I'm not sure what's actually happening here. Are they... Because Prismat hasn't picked up any of his other cards. I guess it's not a burnout, right? The game was just over. Maybe Prismat's just... I admit I'm not really sure what he's doing. I'm going to fast forward a little bit, though. Oh, here we go. Okay. Boom. All right, we're back. We're back. All right. So, let me go one more clip if I can for... Okay. It looks like it gets ready to start. So it is a new game. We did get to close that one out with Time Warp. What are we doing? A little... Oh, he's just watching another match. All right, let's see. 4-0. All right, here we go. Boom. All right, so we've got what looks like Sentry versus Student on the start, and enemy is just started their second turn. Oh no, he's reviewing game 1, I guess? Yeah, he's just reviewing. Very interesting. Alright. Alright, this is presumably the second game now. I think we figured it out, because I don't see him having another stream open. Alright. So we are... Alright, we'll just start from kind of where we're at. Looks like our opponent has a Kai'sa in play. How do they have a Kai'sa in play with resources untapped? Alright, well, let's go ahead and pause here, because even though we got off to a late start this game, we still want to do the same thing that we did, which is kind of assess the battlefields that are being used, and make sure that we understand the gameplay so that the decisions make sense to us as well. So the battlefields being used right now are Reckoner's Arena, activate the Conquer effects of units. When you hold here, activate the Conquer effects. Very nice. So that works with our champion Kai'sa for both players. Very nice. And then this one is little gate situation. Let's see. Targon's Peak, when you conquer here, choose 2 runes. Ready them at the end of this turn. Alright, and it's all piecing together, and that's why we do that. So now that we know what that does, that is why we conquered here on our last turn, the enemy did, and that was why our resources were ready the way that they were after playing the Kai'sa in the same turn. Alright, back to the game now. Looks like that is that a Stupefy? I don't think so. I think Stupefy is a different... I don't know what card that is. It's not the Blastcomb Portal, I don't think, is it? Green card art. Interesting. I don't know what card that was. Alright. We, as Prismat, are playing the Cleave and going for a combat on the Targon's Peak, which is going to let us potentially have more energy and resources for our opponent's turn. So, again, presumably, unless we're fighting with a unit that has a Conquer ability, I suspect this will be the battlefield that is most contested this game. I think both players are going to want to take advantage of the readying their resources so that they have more options on their opponent's turn. Opponent is deep in the tank here for this combat. Definitely telegraphing that they've got a trick. I think you can only assume that it is probably Stupefy with the energy that they have available, and they were just deciding if this was worth fighting over. I think not fighting over that makes total sense. And then we are just putting our Kai'sa into play, and we should get to untap 2 resources, right, because we conquered. And we are hiding a card. Perfect. All right. Prismatic is initiating some early tempo. We got to play multiple cards that turn. We're a little behind on overall cards in hand. 3 cards in our hand to the opponent's 7. But, yeah, and just like we were predicting, the Kai'sa, because of its Conquer ability, is going to focus this battlefield. He values drawing the card more than the combat of getting to remove this unit, which I think is actually a pretty interesting decision, because in theory he would be able to deny a unit from Prismat while also readying more resources. So basically he values the card more than this unit plus untapping readying 2 resources. I think that's pretty interesting gameplay. I think it's pretty safe to assume that, you could definitely fabricate a hand that the enemy has here where he would value the opposite, right? Drawing a card is, of course, good. Oh, wow, and he's just passing with all of those resources. That's crazy. So you know that the opponent has a lot of spells in hand. Your Kai'sa is almost certainly not going to be able to take over the left battlefield here in combat, you would think, unless you're also willing to devote your entire turn to winning said combat. But unless your hand is a very particular set of spells, you may not even want to pick that battle. But then you almost maybe feel obliged, because if you just let them hold, then they get to draw another card for free, right? So this is a really good play by the opponent. This is it looks weird and we don't have access to their hand, right? But 7 cards in hand, I know exactly what Prismat's thinking right now. He is probably pretty annoyed that his opponent didn't do anything because he knows that this is a really hard combat for him to win, probably. He would have been much happier, I think, his opponent playing something and having less resources up that he has to interact with. So this is the not the Void Star. This is the not Void Seeker. This is yeah, Falling Star. 3 to a unit twice. So are we doing damage to our own unit or do you just is it up to? Because there was only one unit in play, right? Oh, you can just do it to the same unit. I see, I see, I see, I see. That's what I missed the last time that card was cast as well. So he's just choosing to deal 3 to the Kai'Sa twice. Okay. And then the opponent retreated it. I actually think that's probably best case scenario for Prismat. And a really good line for him to find. He still would like the ability to maybe defend his Kai'Sa. I think he assumes if he sends his Kai'Sa in that she's going to get destroyed by some spell. But he's probably still obliged to go in, right? I would think he is. Unless you have a way in your deck to fight these spells in the future, which it's not like we're playing counter spells with a Kai'Sa deck. So, yeah, we're going to retreat anyways. That makes total sense because we have the ability to accelerate her next turn if that's the route we want to go. So, really another good, well-played turn by Prismat, I think. I was really worried about his total card count, and I still am. 2 cards versus, this is what, 9 cards? So that's still going to be a big liability this game. But we at least have a decent board. We're not on a battlefield right now. I think that turn worked out better for Prismat than I was expecting, and probably than he was expecting also. But I would think that we're still pretty far behind. I would think we're a pretty big dog this particular game. Our opponent just has so many resources. And it's not like our base is large enough to kind of like tempo through it, right? Our opponent's probably, with the victory point totals being 2-2 right now, our opponent's probably going to have plenty of time to use all of their cards. Opponent definitely in the tank again as well. Hard not to be when you have access to 9 cards. He's got a lot of options. 5. So this is not Kai'Sa. Oh, it is Kai'Sa. We're just also recycling. So we floated one? That's what happened? I think we floated one. Unless I'm misunderstanding. Kai'Sa gets to go in for the opponent uninterrupted. We draw another card. Yeah, I think the enemy here is just very far ahead. It's going to be up to Prismat to pull off something pretty crazy. Passes the turn. I'm definitely missing something on that turn. I feel like our opponent floated a mana for no gain. Because it's 6 to... I guess it is only 5, right? Oh, it is only 5. Okay. I'm misunderstanding the cost. I was thinking it's 6 plus a recycle. It is 5 plus a recycle for the accelerate. There we go. Alright, we're sending in the Poro. The little Poro that could. Into Kai'Sa. After using our big Watcher ability. So presumably, if I was a betting man, I would think that Prismat has another piece of interaction here, because he's relying on this attack pretty heavily. Leading with the Poro attack makes sense. If something does go wrong, he still has the ability to send in the Hopeful onto Kai'sa afterwards. So this sequencing makes a lot of sense to me. We are Hextech Ring, down goes the Poro, and then presumably we're going to be trying to send in the Hopeful now. Yep. And then our opponent just has so many cards in hand. I could easily see this not working, but if it does work, Priz is right back in it, for sure. What's the enemy got? What does the enemy have? What is that, a retreat? Yep, another retreat. These retreats looking really, really good. Definitely one of the more unassuming cards when I was first going over the set that didn't really strike me as being as big of a player as it's going to be. But it just ends up being a very versatile, just very modal card that you want to have access to for that cheap of a cost. Opponent again, just so many cards in their hand. We're up to 10 energy. Plenty of resources to throw away to our disposal. We already know we have the Kai'sa. That would only take half of the energy for our turn. And the Kai'sa looks not exceptional on this board yet. That looks better. Because there's no counterplay to that, right? That's just a 7 might fighting a 1. So there's no trick that the enemy has to be afraid of. Which makes that play pretty safe, right? Usually when you can make a play that is uncounterable, you're pretty happy with that. And then we're just, why did we... we dealt 3... We -3-minded that off of our Watcher. Really good play by the enemy. We recycled a lot of our resources that turn, but we completely took over the board. Yeah, I was under the assumption we used the Watcher ability on the Hopeful, but it looks like we did not. It looks like we used it on the Watcher. Alright, so we accelerated our Kai'sa. And we finally decided to fight over Targon's Peak. Which I think makes sense because it was our only option, right? If we didn't want to commit to any tricks or if we just didn't even have the tricks. Alright, and let's see real quick with a nice little pause what unit that is. That is the... Is that Worm? No. That is 3 might. 3 might. Is that Phoenix? No. I am not sure which card that is either. Let's see. 3 might, not adjusted. I admit I am not sure what unit that is. So we'll have to wait and see. Prismatic's still so far behind on resources this game. Still going to be so tough to clutch this one out. Ooh, big energies. Another Watcher. Wow, wow, wow. Presumably we're targeting the Kai'sa, yep. Which again, into 4 open or 3 open energy plus some free recycling from the Kai'sa ability. Really just a huge mismatch. Is he... Oh, he's conceding. Yep. Down goes Prismat for game 2. I'm not really sure exactly how that one got away from him so bad. I don't have a visceral memory of the enemy playing a bunch of ways to draw extra cards. I think it was those first initial retreats, maybe. Because I think he played 3 retreats that game. And they looked really good. They basically looked like he just never ended up losing a unit or a resource because of them. Our opponent has a million cards in their hand. I wonder what's going on with that. They must still be like shuffling or something, right? I admit I don't really know what's going on. Fast forward a little bit. All right. On to the gameplay. Alright, and let's do what we've been doing, get a nice little beginning of game pause, and see what our battlefields look like here. Battlefields are... Zaun warns, when you conquer, discard, and draw. I will be calling that effect Rummage. That is what that effect is in Magic the Gathering. Discard and then draw. When you conquer here, discard and draw. And then we have... That looks like Reaver's Row to me. When you defend here, you may move a friendly unit here to base. Okay? And we're off to the races. We know what our battlefields are. Let's see the game. Presumably, because we lost the last game, Prismatic will be on the play this game. We will be going first, I think. We are done our mulligan. Our opponent is doing the same. And we're going to start things off with a Poro. A little Poro. Pouty Poro, deflect. The ward mechanic. Alright. Getting off to an early first point. We are discarding our sentry, which makes sense. We probably want to do something a little more powerful than spend 2 of our resources on a 1 might unit in this stage of the game, and then obviously with its Death Knell ability, we're already getting the card out of it kind of with that rummage, so pretty happy with that. And we are playing Kai'sa plus hiding a card in the Poro battlefield. Nice. Opponent up to 5 resources. Could accelerate Kai'sa if they wanted. Probably they don't want to, would be my guess. Like, they could draw the card for coming here, and then... I guess maybe they could retreat it, right? Because that's what the battlefield does. So that's not a horrible line to take, maybe. When you defend here, you may move. Yeah, so they could just move the Kai'sa to the base and give it up. That's really not bad, actually. That's a pretty good baseline play that the opponent has access to. Oh, they're playing that card again that I don't know what it does. Is it just Stupefy? That card just has to be Stupefy, right? Because he's drawing a card off of it. Yeah, it's Stupefy. Okay. The color on this is quite a bit different than the card viewer that I'm looking at. That's what was throwing me off. Wow, the opponent must have felt very desperate to Stupefy that. Unless, oh, that makes sense. We wanted to make it a 3 so that we could get value out of our removal spell here. And the name of that one, again, it is not Void Seeker. It's the other one. The deal 3 twice one. So we get the Poro as well. The name of the card, again, is Falling Star. And the fact that you can target any unit that doesn't have to be on a battlefield, very powerful for the opponents. But we are starting to pull ahead on resources. So I do not think this is an all is lost situation, definitely. We just added a lot to the board there. And then what unit? We're going to go ahead and pause here. What unit is that we just took over that battlefield with before we rummaged? That is the Blast Cone Fae. When you play me, give a unit, boom, and then... Oh, and that was his hidden card. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, so very nice keeping tempo play for Prismat here. And now our opponent on 0 victory points. We really have no issue with them doing any kind of accelerate nonsense. Really, really good play. Yep. This is, I think, Prismat has no issues with this whatsoever. I think he's totally happy to give the enemy a card plus a victory point here. I do think that if we had like a Void Seeker or a way to deal with the Kai'Sa without defending, that would be really nice. That would be really nice. Because we really don't want to give them the ability to retreat it if we don't have to. Yeah, so they're attacking, and he's just going to bait the retreat, which the opponent is going to do. It's a good play. But it's also a good bluff by Prismat, because I think it's totally plausible that Prismat could not really have a spell there. But if you're the enemy, you're tapped out. Can you afford to call? If you don't call and your opponent just has like a cleave, you just get completely wrecked. So, good plays all around. It looks like everybody kind of did everything that makes sense. And we had Darius, but we did not have a double spell. And we also did not put our little Fey Bloom guy into either of the battlefields, which means we're not really trying to hold one. Which is interesting to me. But, alright, so I think that's a decent stopping point there. So, make sure I understand the Blast Cone Fey. You only get the ability when you play it, or when it's revealed from hidden, of course. So he's choosing to keep it on his base for a later combat instead of moving it into one of the battlefields to make them more sturdy. I think that's interesting. And I do think it makes sense because, like, which one are you going to diversify, right? Like, if you put it on one, the opponent still has pretty easy access to the other. But then if you went here, you would be able to just retreat the Poro. Can you retreat both units, or is it just one? Let's reread that bad boy. When you defend here, you may move off friendly. It's just one. So, yeah, I would have been tempted. I would have been tempted to put our Fey Bloom on the right side battlefield here. But that's why we're doing this. Because my assumption is going to be that Prismat is more comfortable leaving it in his base for future combats. So he is going to try and fight for the right side battlefield again. The enemy values that rummage ability. This is where I would love to be able to see the cards in hand. Retreat. And retreat pretty much solo explains it. So our units were always safe no matter what. That explains it right there. Really well played, no surprise by Prismat. Just like I was talking about at the beginning of the video, I think you should pretty much always assume when you're in the learning phase like this that your opponent has reasons, has logic for what they're doing. Opponent has a lot of open energy still, but I really like Prismat's spot. I really like Prismat's spot. We've just been able to keep resources on the board in our base so effectively. And now, like, our opponent's like, what is our opponent going to do about this Darius? No, like, if you spend your turn removing Darius, you're still behind on board. What is this? Is this... Alright, another falling star. And we are stupefying in response, and the reason we're stupefying is... Oh, that was our second spell this turn? Oh, right, because of the retreat. And then they stupefied back is what happened. Okay. Opponent really, really fortunate for the opponent that they had that second stupefy. If they didn't have that second stupefy, that would have been a blowout play for Prismat. As it stands, though, I think Prismat's spot is still very good. Something that I'm kind of keeping my eye on. So the Hopeful, it's a really good beefy play, but Hopeful has just or Prismat has just played less cards that require recycling resources. So we just have access to more powerful plays at this stage of the game. I really like the way he sequenced a lot of this. Yeah, we're crazy ahead on victory points as well. Why is our Poro ready? Did we? Oh, because we held that turn. Yeah, Priz is very, very. Oh, he went up to 6 victory points, but he didn't give his opponent a chance to react. I see. All right, so his opponent did have the Hextech Ray to deal with the point for the right battlefield. But look at our opponent's resources now. Like they're only up to 6 resources. That's we're just casually sitting on 9, going up to 11 on our next turn. Yeah, Prismat's got to be very comfortable with this position. And he's fighting over that battlefield. He's not even really... He's just not making a dent in Priz's base. He's just not able to destroy any of these units, it seems like. We did already rummage with the Hopeful. We went up to 3 points. The enemy did. Enemy's going to need something good. Enemy is going to need something good. Doesn't have access to a Seeker. That's easily something we could have access to as Prismat on our next turn. For sure. Seeker, I meant Watcher. I'll get these card names eventually. Which 2-drop is that again? That's not Student or Watcher. That is... Oh, that's Lecturing Yordle. That's right, the tank. The Lecturing Yordle. God, we just have so many resources. Send both in on the Hopeful, yes. Try and get that 7th point. We don't have to act first. Our opponent's forced to. And then we just trade Yordle for Hopeful. That would be sick. Okay, so we are... They're playing Smokescreen. But they're sacking another resource. I mean, they'll have access to 8 next turn. That's not that bad. But you can definitely see these effects adding up. Look at just the resource count. Just seems so demonstrous for us here. We just have such a lead on our resource counts. Still trade. Did not take over that battlefield. I mean, that's best case scenario for the enemy probably. But Prismat's still in such a great spot. And then there's the Time War. Brings us up to our 7th point. So he was going for the win there. Do we have another Time Warp? We do. Boom. I thought he had to sack... Oh, the ability, right. It's only 3 because of the Kai'Sa ability. Super sick, and that's going to do it. That's going to do it. Prismat takes it down. That was awesome. Yeah, I definitely can't speak for everybody, but I felt like I got a lot out of that. Just a big step at the beginning of the game's lifespan, obviously, is you want to get to the state where you have picture recognition with name, right? You want to know what the cards do just off their picture and kind of have that memorized. You don't want to have to be reading every single card or do what I'm doing right now in the learning phase, right? Which is using the card viewer and going and finding every card on its own, right? You don't actually want to be doing any of that. Once you've reached the stage of the game where you are trying to play competitively, But yeah, that was great. I did, like I said, I didn't actually watch that prior. I didn't know that Prismat took it down, but got himself a nice little dub yesterday evening. So good on him for that. And yeah, like I said, no surprise at all that that's kind of what we were dealing with. He's one of the mainstays of these games. So love to see one for the good guys. That's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you guys are enjoying kind of the content that we're going on. And like I said, this is probably the direction that we are going to be going for the next couple weeks. Just doing some VOD reviews like this format. And hopefully I would really like to get it set up to where we can see hands next time. I don't know if that's a feature that maybe some other people will have access to that he just chose not to for the tournament. But yeah, I'll figure it out, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks. Peace.